Alright, what's up everyone? Welcome back to yet again another segment of the utility rabbit hole within the Lighthouse report. As usual, just before we get started, just gotta let everyone know that I'm not a financial advisor, so please don't take any of this as any form of financial or investment advice, but rather just as research information. And so as you guys saw from the write-up, this month we're taking a little step back and zooming out to get a little overview at the progress and development that's happened within the utility side of the digital asset space throughout this bear market. And as we discussed in the write-up section, nothing's really slowed down at all in terms of industry adoption. In fact, contrary to everything happening in crypto, from the continued falling of prices to the whole cascade of FTX, this sector has only continued to grow larger and larger on the enterprise side across various industries, whether that be finance, tech, supply chain, agriculture, entertainment, or whatever. The enterprises and corporations are finally paying attention, or in other words, the players that'll really move the market and accelerate this technology to mass utilization are finally here. Because at the end of the day, the amount of retail members flowing in can only move the needle so much. It's these players that add real economic value that'll be able to build real applications and utilize the utility by leveraging blockchain technology. So we talked about a variety of different initiatives and sectors, from the financial side's focus on central bank digital currencies to the tokenization of assets. We discussed things like further development and collaborations with the Swiss STX, and some more progress of tokenization of assets in other places around the world like Singapore and Japan. And of course, we also looked over some more development going on around the realm of CBDCs. The progress continues to get closer and closer every day as we're seeing more and more central banks collaborating on various initiatives. In fact, shortly after the whole FTX blow-up, the deputy governor at the Bank of England had come out saying that they could really use a digital pound. And well, who do we know that's creating a digital pound? That's right, the Digital Pound Foundation, and some of our favorite blockchain networks are right in there as core members, such as Quant, Ripple, Avalanche, and some other industry players like Accenture. We also looked into the supply chain and logistics side of things and discussed on the adoption for model law on electronic transfer records, or MLETR. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard a ton about this standard from Citizens of the Future section and the ties that has to the whole XDC ecosystem with their collaborations in the DSI, DNI, TFD, and other initiatives, in addition to some of the projects in their ecosystem like Inigio. Well, we also looked into Morpheus Network, another DLT project in the kind of whole global trade and supply chain side of this space that looks to potentially be working within the MLETR framework. And this was largely highlighted when we dug into the UN ESCAP and International Chamber of Commerce's database for cross-border paperless trading. And while it doesn't directly say MLETR anywhere, we can put the puzzle pieces together with realizing that the United Nations and International Chamber of Commerce are both very key players to the development of MLETR and the overall fact that this is a database for cross-border paperless trading, which is really just a simpler way to say MLETR. And as we go further into the document, we also saw that they had mentioned something about further streamlining following compliance, which would make sense when looking into Morpheus Network's operations of digitalizing documents and the notarization of data, playing perfectly hand in hand with what MLETR fundamentally is. Then we moved on to the energy sector to discuss the operations in the energy web ecosystem, which is one of the few projects in this space building around that specific industry. And of course, what makes them unique relative to any other competitors out there, due to their completely massive moat in their foundation of players like Shell, R3, EDF, Vodafone, and much more, as you guys can see. And beyond just energy grids, they're now working with self-sovereign identities in an initiative for their vision of Digital Product Passport, or DPP, with a consortium called Surpass, which is funded by the European Commission under the Digital Europe program, which plans to distribute and pilot these DPPs somewhere in 2023. And we already know EnergyWeb has also announced a collaboration with Google on distributed energy resources, also within Europe, in Google's Impact Challenge on Climate, where Google has actually funded the EnergyWeb ecosystem €1 million to help with this transition. So they're definitely doing some pretty impressive work with Europe's energy infrastructure. And they've also built multiple different applications in the EnergyWeb chain with some of the members in their foundation that are revolved around digital and self-sovereign identities, such as the collaboration they have with BMW and Ally Group to connect and give identities to not only the automotives themselves, but also the charging stations to ensure clean energy charging and to get an unprecedented amount of data on these electric vehicles. But let's look a little further into some adoption of DLT that's happened lately in some other industries and initiatives. So the metaverse has obviously been a huge topic for a while now, and ever since Facebook's decision to moving to Meta, things have only sped up exponentially. And of course, it's no longer just Meta building for things like the metaverse or augmented/virtual reality for the actual term. We're seeing countless other big tech corporations doing the same, and even a lot of other sectors out there, such as the fashion industry, with companies like Adidas, Nike, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and many more also experimenting and collaborating with projects like the Sandbox and Decentraland to expand their operations in this new reality. Now, we've also just seen Meta collaborate with the Interdevelopment Bank just earlier on in November 23rd. The Interdevelopment Bank is the founding organization for Blockchain, and what Meta and the Interdevelopment Bank are looking to do is give grants of up to $100,000 to Latin American communities building for the metaverse. And while on the surface this may not seem like anything too special whatsoever, let's really dive down the rabbit hole now. So first, this starts off with Telefonica. They're a networking and telecommunications company based out in Madrid, Spain. They have a product that they call TrustOS. And while I just want you guys to hear and look through the way it's described, easily integrate blockchains through APIs, create and manage tokens, deploy APIs, use any programming language. This sounds like a very robust operating system, doesn't it? And well, let's just stop and think, is there anything else out there that can execute all these tasks? Oh right, Quant's Overledger does exactly that. Universal interoperability through a communication layer sitting over top of blockchain networks to find common language through API gateways. There's a lot of speculation that TrustOS is actually a white label of Quant's Overledger, but of course the rabbit hole doesn't end there. Telefonica had also joined the Blockchain Alliance earlier this year. This is the organization that the Interdevelopment Bank Labs had founded to accelerate the adoption of blockchain and DLT in Latin American and Caribbean regions. And we also know Quant and MIT are also part of this alliance, with Quant actually helping build the Latin American dollar in this initiative. Spain, the country in which Telefonica is headquartered, will actually also be one of the countries within the Blockchain Alliance. But why does this matter in regards to Meta? Well, first let's take a look and listen to some of the things Zuckerberg had said during the initial move from Facebook to Meta.
Teleporting around the metaverse is going to be like clicking a link on the internet. It's an open standard. In order to unlock the potential of the metaverse, there needs to be interoperability. And that goes beyond just taking your avatar and digital items across different apps and experiences, which we are already building an API to support. You want to know that when you buy something or create something, that your items will be useful in a lot of contexts and you're not going to be locked into one world or platform.
So a lot of interesting things being said there. Most notably, to unlock the potential of the metaverse, there needs to be interoperability. It's an open standard, building an API to support interoperability. Needless to say, this is quite an interesting way to word it. And now, just a month after, Meta comes out with a post saying that they'll be putting Spain at the heart of Meta's future, and even building their Metaverse Innovations Hub in Madrid, Spain, right where Telefonica is headquartered. And well, I'm sure you guys can guess whose network infrastructure they're leveraging for this mission. That's right, Telefonica. What a strange coincidence, right? Now, we also know Oracle has a partnership with Quant in adding Quant to their startup ecosystem, but Quant's also their certified interoperability solution for blockchain and cloud infrastructure. And so it'd only be right that Telefonica is also partnered with them too, right? Telefonica will actually be moving their critical cloud infrastructure in Spain into Oracle's cloud system, while also being the host partner for the Oracle Cloud Madrid regions, and in return this allows Telefonica to offer Oracle's cloud services to their own clients. Now back to Meta to tie this all together. Meta's president of global affairs, Nick Clegg, had also put out a very detailed 8,000-word Medium article titled "Making the Metaverse What It Is, How It Will Be, and Why It Matters." Meta saw this blog and decided to create their own spin-off version of this, titling it "Ensuring an Open and Interoperable Metaverse," which is quite an interesting title in itself. And as we look into the actual article, a lot of talks of open standards to allow for seamless interoperability. And as we look a little further, we see this layered architecture, much like how Thomas Harjano had reference to when discussing the ODAP standard a while back, which is now actually named SATP for Secure Asset Transfer Protocol. And down here, we even see the name drop of the Internet Engineering Task Force. This is the organization that Quant and MIT are working with to further finalize this standard. Now on a side note, Nick Clegg and Gilbert Verdian both also happen to be holding high-level government positions within the UK during the exact same time. So while there's no official proof, there is a potential chance that these two may have crossed paths at one point and connected with each other. Now of course, this isn't a confirmation of any kind, but it's sure interesting how all this ties together. And maybe, who knows, it's just a coincidence with all these connections, and Meta is actually working with the IDB labs to accelerate and fund the adoption of technologies around the metaverse within the Caribbean, which founded LackChain, a partner of Quant, which they're helping connect Latin American and Caribbean regions through DLT together. Not to mention the ISO standard Quant CEO Gilbert Verdian founded is ISO TC307, the ISO standard for blockchain and distributed ledger technology. And he's also the convener of the working groups 3 and 7, both for interoperability. And well, rightfully so. Within ISO TC307 though, there's actually a few projects being tested around, and one of these are titled AWI 7603. Which is focused on the verification of credentials and identities. They also highlighted these exact points in their Metaverse article that they put out a while back. And if we think about it, these are operations that will be required to enable the true potential of the Metaverse. So definitely a lot of interesting connections brewing in here, and I guess we'll have to see in a few years what really happens. Alright, but that's about all we've got for this month's utility rabbit hole. As usual, I hope everyone continues to have a great time diving through everything within this report, from adoption overview, TradFi, the legal side, DeFi, Web3, and so much more. I hope everyone got some good value out of this review, whatever it may be, and until next time guys, be sure to stay safe and keep learning. Peace.